Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's finally time for the weekly comic book review, part 2. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review, part 2, because it had to be split up into part 2 because of the winter storm that's impacting a lot of the United States right now has prohibited the diamond shipment from arriving at my shop on time. In fact, it still has not arrived. That's right, but we ain't gonna let that stop us. PCP Army is stronger than Diamond Comics distribution. So I called in some favors, I bought some digital comics, I pleaded and begged some publishers to please give me a PDF of their newest books, and here we are with the rest of the weekly comic book review. So we're going to be doing it a little bit different. I won't actually have the books physically with me. So, sorry, this is not going to be how it typically is done. But we do have a pick of the week. So let's start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week is The Picture of Everything Else, number 2, from Vault Comics. Now, this is written by Dan Waters. It's got artwork by Kishore Mohan. I'm pretty sure I butchered that name. Lettering by Aditya Bidikar. Picture of Everything Else is the story of the guy who painted the picture of Dorian Gray, meeting 2 other artists. One artist decides to become like an apprentice of this dude and figure out how he can do what he does and apply that to his own style of painting. The other one is horrified at what he sees from the guy who paints the picture of Dorian Gray, right? I mean, he can paint a picture and he can rip it in half, and then the dude that he painted literally just gets ripped in half wherever he's at, right? Crazy, spooky type stuff. The second issue was amazing because it really gets into the characters, it gets into the idea and the subtext and what it's really about, which is a little bit about criticism. It's a lot about art. It's about the emerging of the two. You know, art is critiqued and criticism is a form of art, right? And some really interesting stuff going on there. The artwork is absolutely amazing. The beautiful colors, they got this almost luscious watercolor type vibe to it. It's very appropriate to the story. You get guest appearances by people like Picasso. Really interesting commentary on art, on criticism from Dan Waters, Mohan, and the rest. Aditya Bidikar, just the best letterer in the business. This shows you why. Look at the tails on these letter balloons. Look at the way that the font is. This is a story set in Paris. It's French. You can feel that French accent coming off of those word balloons. It, to me, was just the most perfectly executed comic book on all parts of it. The editing, the packaging and the design, the writing, the artwork, including the coloring, the lettering, everything about it works so pitch perfectly well that it makes Picture of Everything Else, number 2, the pick of the week. Let's jump over to Marvel. King in Black number 4 released this week. It may be the best issue of King in Black yet. I'll tell you what, I was literally talking a few days ago to my homies up at the comic shop, and I was like, this seems like it's not going to be very fulfilling because it's just 5 issues. Nope, I was wrong. Issue number 4 was amazing. Donny Cates once again taking Marvel continuity, Marvel history, Marvel legacy, tweaking it, retconning it, just twisting and turning it to fit and suit his own purposes for a very dynamic and exciting conclusion on this book and a setup for what's to come. We're not going to spoil it here. We'll be talking about it a little bit more probably on Sunday night's Rockin Robbie Live. By the way, Teen Dog Shades Night, first Teen Dog Shades Nights of 2021. King of Black number 4, though, was awesome. I loved it. I did have it spoiled for me beforehand because it took so long for me to be able to actually read it. But even with it being spoiled, when I actually read it, the revelations, the twists, and the retconning, it just made so much sense. It made so much of an impact for a fanboy, fangirl type feeling. Like, I'm loving King in Black right now, and number 4 was probably the best issue yet. Black Widow number 5, Kelly Thompson brings a conclusion to her first story arc of Black Widow. And we've seen Black Widow in this story arc kidnapped by a group of villains, brainwashed by a group of villains, and led to believe that she's living this kind of ordinary life with a husband and a kid. And the kid is legitimately real. They legitimately made this kid from her DNA and from this dude's DNA. There is so much nuance in this Black Widow book. More character work has been done for Natasha in these 5 issues by Kelly Thompson and Elsa De La Grande, I think. I don't have it in front of me. The artwork's great, but the characterization, so much more has been done with this character in these 5 issues than the last 5 years, and I just gotta salute it for that. It's a tragic book. It's a beautifully tragic book. It's action-packed. It's got great setups for its action sequences. It's got some great other characters that are utilized, like Hawkeye, like Winter Soldier, and I love it. And it's taken a little bit of a hiatus. It will be returning in April, and I'm excited about that because I haven't been this excited for a Kelly Thompson Marvel book since her Kate Bishop Hawkeye stuff, which of course concluded recently, not too long ago, in West Coast Avengers. So Black Widow number 5 was awesome. Cable number 8. Man, I'm loving Cable. I love Kid Cable. I love Kid Cable so much. And I know, he's just Cable. He's a young man, but he's Cable. But Kid Cable sounds so cool to me because it sounds similar to Kid Video. Anyway, Cable number 8, it's getting back to the story that was already set up by Duggan and company. Phil Noto's artwork is great. It's not as elegant as it can be, but it feels like this is very nice. It's very strong, very structured. I really like the artwork. They're getting into the Strife story. There's a lot of Cable clones running around, things like that. But I'm having a lot of fun with this character. I'm having a lot of fun with the mystery of the older Cable still out there somewhere in some timeline. So I'm really digging it. And I like how it's throwing back a little bit to the Ed Brisson X-Force run that came about right before the Hickman era took over. And I really like that. So I hope we see that version of Strife show up, but they're really digging into it, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Marauders number 18, same type thing. Now that Ten of Swords is over, these X-books are able to get back into doing what they were doing best. And there's some, at this point, you got to think about it. I'd say we're like halfway-ish through, or we're like a third of the way through already. Reign of X, probably. I've just broken up a year. And now that Ten of Swords is over, these stories are able to get to what they want to do. But I'm also starting now to drop some X books. I've dropped X Factor. I don't think I'm going to read Excalibur again. And so now I'm able to really focus on the ones I really enjoy. Marauders is one of those ones. And it has been lacking a little bit. I think it's because of the Ten of Swords type thing. But immediately after that, they wrapped up the Sebastian Shaw stuff or set that up for what's to come. Now they're digging back into the whole Hellfire Club, the ones that were created by Jason Aaron and Nick Bradshaw and the Wolverine and the X-Men run, the young kids doing the Hellfire Club. They're still threatening. They're dope. And I loved it. We're getting back to some... I recently just said this when I was on a stream, I think, with Tomorrow Cinema. Which, by the way, Tomorrow Cinema Station, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your channel, and thank you for being a part of the PCP Army, Manuel. But, like, I've said that, like, I love Bishop. And Bishop, you know, Marauders is where he's spotlighted right now, but it's not always necessarily a Bishop book. There was a lot of nice Bishop action in here, some Pyro, some Iceman, a little bit less Kitty, a little bit less Emma, no Storm. Callisto's now in that role, and I'm really, really excited for it. This was a great issue, Marauders. I had a lot of fun returning to the gist of the story, taking those stakes, ramping them up, and I have so much fun with what's going on with Marauders. It's the Pirate X-Men book I never thought I wanted, but did want. That didn't involve Nightcrawler and all the little Nightcrawler demons, Kitty Pryde swashbuckling around. Whatever. Immortal Hulk Flatline, it's a one-shot comic. So Immortal Hulk is so successful, for the most part, that they've been doing these one-shots. They've been bringing in some great talent on these one-shots. You had Jeff Lemire doing some. You had other people who completely escape my mind right now. We got a new one upcoming from Alex Packnadel. Oh my goodness, Alex Packnadel's writing an Immortal Hulk one-shot. This one's done by Declan Shalvey. Declan Shalvey is one of my absolute favorite artists. If you're not familiar with his work, he did the Moon Knight story, I think it's called From the Dead, that Warren Ellis wrote. I love this cat's artwork, and he's a really good writer as well. He did a graphic novel at Image a couple years ago called Savage Town. If you've never read that, but you like crime fiction, you really should check that book out. Declan Shalvey does a pretty good job with Flatline. It's a decent story. It's okay, but the artwork is phenomenal. I want to see more work from Declan because he does an absolutely great job. Immortal Hulk is a pretty solid book already in and of its own, but doing these one-shots, bringing in these great, fantastic creators to kind of do these stories that fit in the timeline of Immortal Hulk at some point, but are not tied into the continuity and ongoing story, and they're able to do these one-shot stories. This was a rather good one with amazing artwork, so I definitely would recommend that. We talked about King in Black #4 being the best issue of the series. What about the tie-ins? Well, we got King in Black, Planet of the Symbiotes, #2 out this week. It's okay. So each issue of this Planet of the Symbiotes, there's three issues, so there's one more. I don't even remember what the one story was. But one story involved Prowler, Hobie Brown's Prowler, and it sets up Prowler in a new, kind of familiar role for the Marvel Universe, and I'm kind of excited about that. I'm a big Hobie Brown Prowler fan. I think it's a great costume design, and for some reason I just always loved this character. So I'm excited to see him get a spotlight. The issue itself was just okay. What was the other story? It had artwork by Kyle Hotz. I don't even remember. What does that say? Let's move on. Miles Morales' Spider-Man 23 was a King in Black tie-in. Pretty good one, actually. I enjoyed this one. You always see these books with Miles, and when Bendis did Miles Morales, and such a great character that he created, along with Sarah Pichelli and whatnot, but sometimes he would overuse the Venom sting. Like, every single Bendis Miles story ended basically with him doing a big Venom sting and winning and saving the day. That's kind of what happens here, but Ahmed does a different twist on it, and it's not necessarily a good thing that he uses his Venom sting to end the big threat. Plus, you got Kamala Khan in there. I love that dynamic. I thought this was a really cool, fun Miles book and a cool tie-in to King in Black. We also have Savage Avengers #18. It is Conan, Deadpool, and I can't remember the character's name, but he's some kind of like C-D list, like Marvel villain. It's their journey during King in Black. It's Conan teaming up with Deadpool, and it was actually pretty freaking fun. Kev Walker's not my favorite artist, and he's definitely not my favorite artist for this series, but I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Since the PCP Army has gotten me into Savage Avengers, I'm enjoying it. It is the Roadhouse of Marvel Comics, and it is the Roadhouse of King in Black tie-ins. I will definitely tell you that. MODOK Head Games! Issue #3 is out this week. I've been really high on this Jason Blum, Patton Oswalt series. Issue 3 for me was the weakest so far. It wasn't bad. They're still staying true to the MODOK character and to the MODOK history. They're staying true to all of that, and they're still doing something very fun, but also slightly resonating and slightly, saying something deep about the character. However, this does have Gwenpool all throughout it. Deadpool annoys me, but what annoys me more than Deadpool is Gwenpool. But it was okay. It wasn't super bad. I wouldn't say that Gwenpool was a distraction, except for I'm saying that this is the weakest issue so far, so obviously Gwenpool was some kind of a distraction for me, at least. Let's move on. Thor #12. Donny Cates has been doing a great job with the Thor book right now. It's one of Marvel's best books. We're in the middle of this story where Donald Blake has taken Thor's place, and he's pissed. He is so freaking mad. But in this issue, you get, this evil Donald Blake fighting Throg, the frog Thor. Thor's a frog, and it's Throg, and it's actually really freaking good. Lockjaw's in it. Jane Foster's Valkyrie is in it. But there's a special appearance at the end that I'm very excited for, because I did not see that coming, and I'm very excited to see how this story is going to wrap up. And then, of course, Thor will be freed, so he can go off into King in Black and do his thing. But I liked Thor #12. I almost said X-Men. Why? Because the next one on the list is X-Men Legends #1, written by Fabian Nicieza, the man who was responsible for really fleshing out the character of Night Thrasher. Come on. There would be no Ghost Thrasher, let me tell you this, without Fabian Nicieza. So Fabian Nicieza is coming in to do this 2-issue story in X-Men Legends, which, by the way, X-Men Legends is a series in which previous X-Men writers are going to get to come in and kind of just fill in some gaps on their run. Chris Claremont's coming up. Louise Simonson's coming up to do an X-Factor story. That's really nifty, but we're going to kick it off with Fabian Nicieza and artist Brett Booth. Brett Booth is one of the most 90s artists still working in comics today, and the artwork was fine. It will take you right back to that day. The costumes, the dialogue, everything. Fabian Nicieza, I actually think Fabian's a better writer nowadays than he was back then, so it actually had a better flow for the story. But what he's doing is he's telling us the true story of the third Summers brother. You know, back in the day when there was a mystery about the third Summers brother, before Vulcan was introduced, before Ed Brubaker and all that stuff. And we were led to believe that it may be this Adam X character. Extreme! Oh my goodness. So this is actually telling and fleshing out that story that completely just got dropped out, and I enjoyed that. If you're an old school 90s X-Men fan and you hate some of those dangling things like Extreme and the third Summers brother, even though they did fulfill that with Vulcan, but there was another plan initially, and Fabian's going to show us a little bit of the plan. It's kind of like that From the Vault series that Marvel did for a while, where they actually would have commissioned artwork that was done before, and then they finally released it. But this, of course, is a new story, but it worked. It worked really well. And if you are an old school X-Men fan who is completely ostracized from the Hickman stuff, it's completely just taken you out of it, check this one out. This may be more to your liking. I'll definitely say that. So just jump over to Image. Family Tree number 11. Jeff Lemire, Phil Hester doing an amazing job in this book. It starts off as just a simple story about a girl who starts turning into a tree. But it winds up becoming this really elaborate and emotional story that's got like post-apocalyptic scenarios, crazy ideas and concepts, wonky sci-fi, and I'm really, really liking it. It also has an element of horror. Phil Hester's got this great angular style that works so well for the tone of this story. And you find out that Family Tree number 11 is the penultimate issue. Maybe I should pay more attention, but I didn't realize this series was ending at 12 because I thought that this could have kept going and going and going. But a sign of a good series is when it ends and you're not ready for it to end, but hopefully the ending will be strong. This issue that led up to that big finale was incredibly strong. I'm amazed by Jeff Lemire's ability to take a simple concept and start it so simply, but then like make it so elaborate and just twist it and bring us into it. It is absolutely fantastic. Haha. Number 2 is out this week. Written by W. Maxwell Prince. The artwork in this one is done by, I don't know, I didn't write it down, so that's terrible. We'll just Google it or whatever. But Haha is going to be a 6-issue series from the writer of Ice Cream Man. This is an anthology series. The first issue was the pick of the week. This one almost made the pick of the week. It's a completely different story, themed around a clown, but not quite in the way that we were probably anticipating. So I like the little difference in perspective on what clown means for this one, but I really loved Haha number 2. It was almost pick of the week. Seriously, it could have been. Like, it was like right there with a picture of everything else, and Haha, and actually Hollow Heart. Just kind of like all 3 of those were just amazing to me. Lots of good books this week. Haha number 2, though, really strong. I loved it. It's got a lot of depth to it. It's got a lot of emotional resonance. It's got some really wonky, crazy type ideas, some nutso scenes. If you're a big fan of Ice Cream Man, Haha is pretty much essential. This is great. I'm so excited to see what's to come in this book. And just like Ice Cream Man, maybe not as into it as Ice Cream Man can be, but this does have a slight connection to the first issue. Very slight, but there is a connection. This is all in the same world. Let's just say that. Haha number 2, fantastic. Stillwater number 6, wow. Wow. Stillwater's been one of those books by Chip Zdarsky. It's about this town, which if you're in this town, you don't grow old, you don't die. Like, if you get stabbed in the heart, you just heal and get better. Now, of course, it hurts like an MFer, but, whatever. I have really been so impressed with what Ramon K. Perez as the artist and what Chip Zdarsky are able to do with this book. Mostly exposition to this point. Mostly explaining things. What's going on with this town? Why the secrecy? Why, how do they deal with it, right? What's been going on? And you have this new introduction of this new character who shows up, who was born in this town, goes away, finds out, and his mom sends him a letter or something. He comes back to the town. Now he's finding out all this craziness. And it's world building while it's doing it. And then in issue 6, It takes the story in a completely different direction than I ever thought this thing would go, and I am so freaking incredibly excited. Chip Zdarsky, Perez, Spicer, and company are killing it on Stillwater. 6 issues in, it's one of the best books on shelves. From Dark Horse, we have Barbalian, Red Planet #4, written by Jeff Lemire and, is it Trombomble? Why did I not write this down? Anyway, really, really solid issue of Barbalian. This has been the best issue of this series yet. This is a series of Barbalian is a Martian Manhunter type character in the Black Hammer universe. He is also gay. He's also a gay man, right? So it's telling the story of his story in the 80s. So first of all, it is set up structurally like an 80s comic book, right? So there's that. Gabriel Hernandez Walta, fantastic artist. This is the artist from Tom King's Vision. This is the artist that worked with Lemire on Sentient, which was one of my favorite books of 2019. And so if you're dealing with the gay community in the 80s, you are dealing with the AIDS epidemic. You are dealing with hate. You're dealing with hate and bigotry, right? And it's handling it in a very powerful and emotional way. This issue it really hits a climax. This is the penultimate issue, but you got all these different elements. You got Barbalian trying to still figure out his identity. You got this group of gay freedom fighters that he's become attached to, that he's a part of. He's also a cop, and you got the cops and their own ideas about what's going on with the gay community and the gay scene in the 80s, and all this misconceptions and it's all just, it's so there, it's so raw, it's so visceral, it's like so freaking good. Like if things like Rent, by the way, I'm a big musical guy, and Rent hits me hard every time. It's like if I want a good cry, all I gotta do is watch Rent. It's hitting that kind of level of impact for me. Barbalian, Red Planet #4, the penultimate issue, very powerful, very good, great art, great story, great characters, and just incredibly important, in my opinion. Then we got Young Hellboy. His name was Young Hellboy. The Hidden Land, #1, Mike Mignola, Tom Stanowski. Yeah, didn't write down the artist. Should have done that, but this is unprecedented times right now for the weekly comic book review. Young Hellboy, Hidden Land was pretty solid. This is a new little mini-series telling just a random story from the 40s about young Hellboy, when Hellboy was a kid, when he was Hellboy boy. They are working over there. Do you hear that? Like, the apartment right next to me has been vacated, and they're working. Like, this dude is... How rude. Does he not realize that we are operating pop culture philosophers right over here? But anyway, Young Hellboy, Hidden Land was pretty solid. Nice, fun, cute, charming Hellboy story. Has all the elements you typically want. It's maybe a bit too bright, not quite as dark. That's the one thing I will say about some of these other Hellboy books that other artists tackle, aside from just Mike Mignola, is that they don't always quite capture the darkness, right? The panel composition is there. The layouts, everything is kind of there. But the darkness isn't. Speaking of dark, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, #2. Way better than issue #1, in my opinion. Way better than issue #1. So I still don't want to spoil it, I guess. It's been forever, so you guys should know who The Last Ronin is, but I'll just tell you this. It is not Raphael, and I told everybody that Raphael would be the first to go. I told everybody that. I was like, it can't be Raphael because he'd be the first to go. Well, I really think I've been proven right with a lot of things this week, including WandaVision and King in Black, and especially Last Ronin. Raphael was the first to go, and we find out his story. What was the last Raphael story? You find that out in here, and it is freaking heartbreaking. Yo, this issue tugged on my heart so much. I thought the first issue was okay. I thought it was okay. Pretty decent. I liked the reveal of who the Last Ronin is. I liked all that. The second issue hit me so freaking hard because you're taking these characters I have loved since I was a kid, and you are showing me their last battles, their last efforts. You're showing me how sad it can become, how dark. And the Last Ronin, oh my goodness, let me just tell you this. I feel for him so bad. I loved this issue. I thought it was amazing, way surpassing the first issue. And you even have a section in this book with artwork by Eastman and Laird, and it's just freaking beautiful, and it takes you back to it. And I really feel like TMNT Last Ronin #2 finally fulfills the promise that was set by the first issue. I don't think it delivered so much in the first issue, but the second issue, amazing. Was it worth the delayed wait? They really should have let all of this get done before they started it, to be honest. From Boom Studios, Abbott, 1973, issue number 2. Really liked it. Not liking it as much as the initial series because Jason Wordie's not the colorist, and I don't feel like the coloring has as much texture as it needs to. But the story is actually moving a bit brisker and a lot better than the first one. I think Saladin Ahmed's actually, over the last few years, since he did Abbott in, like, what was it, 2017, 2018, something like that, I really feel like he's evolved as a writer, and his flow is better, his pacing is better, and I think that Abbott 73 is really benefiting from that. I just wish we had Jason Wordie on there, but I'm really into this character. It's set in 1973. She's a detective journalist, but it's got a supernatural twist to it. I have a lot of fun with this book. Also, we have Once and Future number 16. There was a lot going on. There's a lot of action. I felt like it was a bit jarring with it. I really feel like, it's sad to say this, I feel like this is one of the weaker issues of Once and Future, but only because there was just so much going on that I don't feel like it felt natural when they were shifting back and forth. But a lot of big things happened in this issue, and once again, the artwork by Dan Mora, Tamara Bonvillain as the colorist, absolutely freaking beautiful, amazing. How is he doing Once and Future and Detective at the same time? I don't know, but other artists, pay attention because Dan Mora is it right now. He's probably the best artist in the comic book industry. Tamara Bonvillain, I think, maybe the best colorist in the comic book industry. And Karen Gillan's doing a really great job with this book, bringing it back to the Arthurian stuff, but still making it feel fresh and different and cool. And this is something that, like, we always talk about comics need to stand as comics. They don't always need to be, like, trying to be adapted into a TV or movie. But, I want a movie or a TV series so bad of Once and Future. This is such a great adventure comic with lots of horrific elements to it. Once and Future 16, pretty decent. It's okay. Has great artwork. Has some great moments that lead you to the next part. But it just didn't quite flow as well as some of the previous ones. Then we have Power Rangers number 4, loving it. Power Rangers is dealing with the Omega Rangers in space with Draken. They kidnap Draken from the Power Rangers, so that completely, like, splinters the group, and I love that. But I'm loving this story. So many great concepts. It's epic in scope, way more grandiose in scope than the TV show ever hoped to be. Way much more characterization. And that's just what Ryan Parrott's been doing with the Power Rangers, and issue number 4 was great. I really love the action. I really love the intrigue. They go back and revisit Draken's little prison world or whatever, and it's deepening this mystery of the Empirical, and I'm just having so much fun with this. So Power Rangers number 4, the best Power Rangers we've ever gotten. Ronin, American Ronin, actually. American Ronin number 5 from AWA Upshot. It's the final issue of the series for now, so we do have confirmation that it's coming back for volume 2. I think it's been some of the best Pete Milligan work I've read in recent years, and the artwork by Eiko is absolutely amazing. Out of all the AWA stuff, it could be really criticized to say that all the AWA Upshot stuff is really just trying to be a movie or a TV series. This is the one, to me, that works the most as a comic. This would be, to me, interesting to see on screen, but this is such a comic book idea, such a comic book execution, and I think they handled the finale really, really well, and I am excited for it to come back because this has been a very cool book from AWA with a really intriguing concepts and great artwork. We have bite-sized number 3, little gremlins, little batteries included, but now in issue number 3, we find out a little bit more of its own identity, its own unique thread that it's posting up there in the comic book industry. Nelson Blake does a great job with the artwork. It's cutesy, it's fun, it's got this charm to it. Cullen Bunn doing a sci-fi, slightly horrific story at times, but in a very charming, kid-friendly, family-oriented type way. Did it really good. We Live number 3 is here. Let's talk about that. We Live has been a really, really solid book. And one of the things I've been really happy with is that it takes these twists and turns. Each issue has a turn that I just do not see coming. So I got to give it to the Miranda brothers for this, because the ending of We Live, when this is the final issue for now, it is confirmed it's coming back for a season 2. And the ending is something I did not see coming whatsoever. But here's the problem. I really didn't like the ending of this book. I thought this book had such a unique vision, such a grand, bold concept and execution that it was doing, that I really feel like the ending was kind of cheap, and it kind of cheated me out of a book I really liked, a great sci-fi fantasy book that was blazing new ground, I thought. because of the ending of this book, has become something typical. And I'm kind of disappointed in that. But I will definitely read it all again, all the way through. I don't want to spoil it, but the ending of We Live season 1 did not excite me. I'll just be honest with you. I really loved this book up until the revelation of what the book was actually about. And then I was like, oh, another one? Anyway, moving on, let's talk about Shadow Doctor #1. This is from Aftershock as well as We Live #5 was. Shadow Doctor is a somewhat true story. It's based on a true story about this black American doctor who didn't have any chances to like go to school and become a doctor back in like, what is this set, in the 20s or the 30s or something? And what's during Prohibition, so it's got to be the 20s, right? 30s, 20s. That's the 20s, right? 20s, 30s. 20s, 30s. Anyway, way not enough history documentaries lately and way too many alien documentaries. Don't worry, Team Dog Chase Night, Sunday night. But Shadow Doctor #1 is pretty solid. It's the true life story of this black American doctor who had to basically join Capone's mob to get his college fund bankrolled, right? But it was actually an incredibly well done book. Great pacing, great dialogue. The dialogue is so snappy and so spot on. It was brilliant. And to find out that this is a true story, I definitely want to dig more into that. But it was a really cool comic book from Aftershock, a great debut issue. I thought was super, super strong. It's got mafia stuff in it. It's got historical drama in it. But altogether, it does have a tinge of Maus, right? Like Maus, because it's Art Spiegelman's father telling him about his experience in the Holocaust. And this is, I think, about Calloway. Peter Calloway, I think, is the writer, or a writer. I think it's just one, maybe it's two. But I think that this is a story that he was told by his dad, and this is his dad's story. I really, really liked it. Shadow Doctor #1 was really, really cool. I will call that the sleeper hit of the week. And let's wrap up with Second Coming, Only Begotten Son #2 from Ahoy! Ahoy! Anyway, I'm loving this book. So Second Coming is the story of, let's just basically say what it is. It's God saying that, Jesus, you're not man enough for me. You're not Messiah enough for me. How about you go to Earth and learn how to be a true Messiah figure from Superman? That's what it is, right? And the entire first story, which could have easily just been satirical, sacrilegious, it had so much heart to it. I really feel like it got to the core of Christ's teachings. And how Christ would respond to his teachings interpretation today. Now, this is just me personally. I'm not trying to knock anybody's faith. I have a lot of faiths. But in Second Coming, Only Begotten Son, this is the second volume, I was worried that the statement had been made, what are we really going to do? And the first issue was okay, and it was pretty solid. But the second issue, holy cow, it may have been the best issue of Second Coming yet. In this issue, Jesus is trying to find new followers. So he goes to this theme park that's themed around the Bible. And what he comes across is not quite what he expected. This is a very, to me, a powerful issue. And I think that this movie completely nails the message of Christ. I think that's what this comic book is doing. Mark Russell is telling a story about humanity, about love, about compassion, and about the world we live in and how that's not exactly human, compassionate, or loving. You know what I'm saying? So I really, really liked it. Second Coming, Only Begotten Son, #2. I thought it was freaking fantastic. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought. Sorry I didn't have the books to show off in front of me, but I promise I read them. I had to do a lot of twists and turns, and I even had to buy some digital comics. I'm not happy to do it, but I'm doing whatever it takes to make sure I can get you the weekly comic book review as quickly as possible, because I've never been later than a Friday, and it ain't going to happen in 2021 because PCP is stronger than Dynaman. We are invincible. Anyway, thank you so much. What's your pick of the week? What's your favorite books? What are you excited for? What are you reading? Let us know in the comments down below. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for your support, PCP Army. We couldn't do this without you and without our patrons. And if you want to join our patrons, they're over at patreon.com/PCP. Thank you all so much for rocking with us. Please do like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell, and join us at popculturephilosophers.com for podcast blogs and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station.